All right, let's dive right in. We're talking about India's external sector today and its high stakes playbook for the future. You see, the old rules of global trade, they're basically being torn up and rewritten as we speak. So the big question is, how does a rising power like India not just survive all this chaos, but actually win?
And really, that's the whole ballgame, isn't it? It's one thing to just, weather the storm. It's another thing entirely to actually use that storm, to use the chaos to pull ahead of the pack. And what we're going to see is that India's strategy for doing just that is, well, it's incredibly resilient, but it's also really, really ambitious. Okay, so first things first, we've got to get our heads around the new playing field. That whole idea of a seamless, borderless world, yeah, that's pretty much over. It's less of an open global marketplace now and more like a bunch of exclusive members-only clubs. Countries are still trading, for sure, but they're building these higher walls and being super picky about who they let in. And you know who the bouncer is at the door? National security. And these days, that bouncer is just as important as the price tag on the goods. And look, if you need just one number to really get a sense of the scale of this chaos, here it is. The Trade Policy Uncertainty Index, it just shot up by over 1,100%. I mean, that's not a small tremor, right? That is a full-on seismic shock to the entire global system. We're talking about probably the most unpredictable trade environment anyone has seen in modern history. So, yeah, the rules have definitely changed. With all that uncertainty swirling around, let's dig into what this new era of global trade actually looks like. What's happening on the ground?
I mean, it's really a perfect storm of challenges. You've got rising protectionism, which leads to these tit-for-tat tariff wars. That, in turn, pushes the big economies to decouple, especially in really critical areas like technology. And of course, that forces a complete reshuffling of supply chains all over the world. But the big driver behind all of it, it's this new reality where national security isn't just a consideration. It is the trade policy. It's a messy, unpredictable world out there for sure. All right, so that's the global storm. The big question is, how has India actually done in the middle of all this? Well, when you look at the scorecard, it tells a pretty surprising story of just how resilient it's been. Get this, despite all those headwinds we just talked about, India's total exports hit a record $825.3 billion last year. That's a huge number, no doubt about it. But, and this is the important part, the real story, the much more interesting one, is hiding just underneath that big headline number. And this insight comes straight from India's economic survey. See, if you just glance at the numbers, the merchandise exports, they look a little flat, kind of stagnant. But that headline number is super misleading. It's hiding a much, much better trend that's happening just below the surface. So let's peel back the layers and see what's really going on. So here's the breakdown. You have to take out the really volatile stuff, right? So we're talking about petroleum and gems and jewelry. They make up about a fifth of all exports. Once you set those aside, you find the real engine. These core exports, and we're talking about almost 80% of the total, they actually grew by a really strong 7.5%. This is where you see the real strength and diversity of India's export machine. And this right here, this performance, it points to the absolute core of India's strategy, diversification. It's a simple idea, really. If the old traditional doors are getting harder to open, well, the plan is to go out and find and kick down a whole bunch of new ones. So let's take a look at what that actually means in the real world. Let's look at two classic examples, textiles and gems and jewelry. These are big, labor-intensive sectors, and both have been getting hammered in their traditional markets, especially the US, and that has forced them to make a major pivot. Okay, let's start with textiles. Exports to the US market, they fell by over 6%. But here's the weird part. Their overall exports to the entire world actually stayed flat, even grew a tiny bit. So what's going on? How is that even possible? Well, here's your answer. A massive, massive pivot to new markets. While the US was dropping, exports to the UAE shot up 22%. Poland up almost 25%. And then things just get wild. Senegal is up 162%. And Sudan? Sudan is up over 1,100% for cotton fabrics. Now that is what diversification looks like in action. And you know what? It's the exact same story with gems and jewelry, only even more dramatic. Exports to the US absolutely plummeted, down more than 44%. I mean, that is a huge hit. But again, look at the global number.
it stayed positive. That's a crystal clear sign of a massive strategic shift underway. And here's how they pulled it off. While the U.S. market was collapsing, exports to the UAE jumped by almost 35%. Hong Kong was up over 23%. And then you see these just unbelievable outliers. Bahrain up 125%. And Mexico, get ready for this, up over 7,500% for precious stones. This isn't just adapting. This is aggressively hunting down new opportunities wherever they can be found. So, okay, this resilience is seriously impressive, but it's really only half the story. The really exciting part is when you start to look forward. And that brings us to the main event, playing the long game. This is about moving beyond just being resilient and into unlocking just a massive amount of untapped potential. Okay, you're going to want to pay close attention here because this might be the single most important idea we talk about today. Right now, when you measure a country's economic sophistication, how complex its economy is, India ranks 44th in the world. 44th. But here's the kicker. Its potential rank, based on the skills and knowledge it already has, is second. Number 2. Just let that sink in for a second. From 44 to 2. That's not just a gap. That is a massive chasm of untapped potential. It's one of the biggest opportunities for any major economy on the entire planet.
So what exactly is economic complexity? The easiest way to think about it is like a country's resume. You know, a really simple economy might have a resume with just 1 or 2 skills on it, like exports cotton. But a complex economy, its resume is long and diverse. It says can design microchips, can manufacture advanced pharmaceuticals, and can build heavy machinery. That is the kind of leap that India is now in a position to make. But how on earth do you close a gap that big? Well, it turns out India already has the blueprint. And to find it, we just have to look at the incredible story of its own pharmaceutical industry. It is a genuine masterclass in how to turn a massive disruption into total global dominance. Seriously, this story is amazing. So back in 1995, this new global patent deal called TRIPS comes along and basically makes India's entire drug-making model illegal overnight. They were great at reverse engineering drugs, and suddenly they couldn't do that. It was a true existential threat. But here's what's so cool. Instead of just folding, the entire industry pivoted, and they pivoted hard. They started pouring tons of money into their own research and development. And by the 2010s, they had completely transformed into the pharmacy of the world, the biggest supplier of affordable generics on the planet. And the result? A mind-blowing 16-fold increase in exports in about 20 years. And right there, that gives us the playbook. It's basically a 4-step formula. Step 1, build your own deep capabilities. Don't just copy what others are doing, invest in your own R&D. Step 2, diversify your markets like crazy so you're never held hostage by a single customer. Step 3, innovate by collaborating with others to share the risks and the rewards. And finally, Step 4, go out and strategically buy companies in other countries to get access to their markets and their tech. That right there, that's the template. Okay, so this brings us to the home stretch, forging the future. The big question now is how is India taking that exact playbook and applying it today across the entire economy to finally close that gap and realize all that potential? And when you look closely, you can see this playbook being rolled out right now on a massive scale. You hear about those production-linked incentive or PLI schemes? Well, that's basically step 1. It's all about building up domestic manufacturing capabilities, just like the pharma industry did with R&D. And all these new free trade agreements being signed, that is step 2 in action, aggressive market diversification. The government is creating new funds for R&D. It's a really cohesive strategy, taking a formula that worked and applying it to the whole country. So when you put it all together, it's pretty clear that India isn't just reacting to a chaotic new world, it's actually using a proven playbook to play a whole new game. The strategy is there, the potential, as we've seen, is absolutely undeniable, and the blueprint for how to do it already exists. Really, the only question left is about execution. Can it actually close that incredible gap from being 44th in the world to number 2? The answer to that is going to be one of the biggest economic stories to watch over the next decade. Thanks for tuning in.